Whatever we can do for the voters that might stumble across this and listen to us to make the case for Matthew Stafford for the next 5 to 10 minutes, I'm definitely here for that. I mean, the funny thing to me about the whole Drake Maye thing is you have the conversation, oh, he doesn't have the supporting cast that Matthew Stafford has. And then you say, oh, you look at some of the more metric-based stats that like people like myself and yourself probably prefer to accounting stats. And it's kind of one of those things. You use the stats to kind of fit your narrative and who you want to push. But the truth of the matter is against better teams, against better competition, Stafford was better. And I think too, narrative to me is always going to matter in the MVP race. It really, truly is. And you saw that year with McNair and Peyton Manning, early 2000s when they tied. And I'm sure it's going to be a very close race. There's no doubt about it. But the truth is Matthew Stafford has no all-pros in his career until this year, right? Had a couple of Pro Bowls. This, to me, starts to make up for that. Not because I didn't think he deserved those for certain years, but this cements his legacy for those that had any doubt. If you win an MVP, it's like winning the Best Actor award at the Academy Awards, right? It's like winning that Best Picture award, winning a Grammy. It takes your career to a whole nother level, and you have to look at it as saying, this is someone who, as you said yesterday, we didn't know what kind of quarterback he was going to be, dealing with the back injuries. One wrong hit, something can end his career, and he puts together a season like he did with the numbers that he put up. And I look, 35 TDs to 11 interceptions for Drake Maye, 46 to 11. If you want to do traditional, if you want to go passer rating, they're too close in my eyes to give Drake Maye the edge there. And I just don't see how, from a narrative standpoint, unless the Patriots were the 1 seed and they maybe went head to head and he balled out and late in the season. But the Stafford name, I think, carries. I think Drake is going to lose to LA once again. Of course, I'm talking about something else in the rap world, which of course I'm fans of both those guys. But I think you catch my drift on that one.
Yeah, I mean, I understand PFF is in the Bible, but when I look and I see Matthew Stafford 47 big time throws and 19 turnover worthy plays, and I see Drake Maye 26 and 17 turnover worthy plays, I find I have a really hard time sitting here and saying, yep, Stafford just has everything in front of him. He just has it all. I mean, let's not forget, Drake Maye isn't playing with some random offensive coordinator. He's playing with the same offensive coordinator Tom Brady had, right? We know Josh McDaniels and his offense, when things are clicking, it goes very well, right? I mean, and in addition to that, Stephon Diggs is up there in all those wide receiver, and this is the funny thing, is that the advanced metrics are always, used by now, like all these New England fans trying to, push Drake Maye. They never use the advanced metrics because it makes Stephon Diggs look like what Stephon Diggs is, a former 1,500-yard receiver in his own right. And so they want you to believe that Stephon Diggs isn't the same player. And thus it means like Drake Maye he's carrying everybody, when in reality, I don't think that's necessarily true. And I understand he can run, but I think we're playing a dangerous game bastardizing, the old school pocket quarterback. I really do. And by the way, the Rams had an opportunity to go out and get Deshaun Watson. Let's not forget that. They chose Matthew Stafford for a reason. Do you think they have a Super Bowl with Deshaun Watson? No. They might have a whole other bunch of issues, but they don't have a Super Bowl. I can tell you that. And so that's the thing, is Matthew Stafford isn't just a pocket passer. And this is where when you start hearing all the EPA arguments, and I love EPA, but I don't love it for quarterback. And here's why. It doesn't take into account what Matthew Stafford's doing off script. It doesn't take into account that Matthew Stafford just had a no-look pass. And that's not just for shits and gigs like, Patrick Mahomes does, right? That's not what that's for. Like, he's doing that to literally get the linebacker who is in his throwing lane out of the way. You want to know why? I know Al Michaels didn't realize it was a touchdown based on the way he called that. I love the guy, but no idea what he was doing there. Puka Nacua catches a touchdown overtime. He is wide open. Why is he wide open? Do you think they just didn't cover him? No. Ernest Jones basically looked like a goalie in a kick, a shootout, and he is just diving in the opposite direction of where the ball's coming because he schooled him. He did the same thing in the Super Bowl with Jermaine Pratt, against the Bengals. He does this. So does EPA take that into account? Absolutely not. They don't take into account those things. So yes, Drake Maye's leading in those categories, EPA and things like that. They don't take into account the magic of Matthew Stafford. And that is where I get kind of disappointed, where you see those film watchers that are like, yeah, if you watch the tape, Drake Maye's better. It's like, I don't think you're watching the tape then. I really don't. Because Stafford has some of the craziest throws you'll ever see, and it's all over his tape. And he's making these pinpoint accurate throws. They were using that throw yesterday to Puka Nacua in tight coverage where he has to one-hand grab it. They're using that against Stafford. Like, oh, he had to make a one-handed catch. That's not the excellent thing that you think it is. Actually, it's Matthew Stafford knowing his receiver. Like, he knows Puka Nacua is capable of making that one-hand catch. He threw it exactly where Nacua could make that one-hand catch. It's funny to me because then they'll say, whatever that thing came out, Bill Barnwell was saying how Drake Maye, oh yeah, you can't take into account. Why am I always told that I can't take into account the strength of schedule? Why? Because it supports my argument. Like, I'm just supposed to lay down just lay down the sword. Drake Maye is better. You have the argument? Doesn't matter. Doesn't matter that Matthew Stafford's 47 big-time throws is the most in a season since Patrick Mahomes in 2020. If he had 3 more on Sunday, he would have had the most since Drew Brees had in 2012 with 53. Okay? Doesn't matter, right? That does not matter. So, I feel like that has to, come into play. I think also top 15 DVOA defenses, Matthew Stafford having 25 touchdowns, 5 interceptions, 2,600 plus yards to Drake Maye's 1,400 yards, 12 touchdowns, and 4 interceptions. I think that has to matter. I think the fact that the combined record of the last 4 teams that Drake Maye played before week 18 was 25-39, whereas Stafford's was 31-33, acting like, oh, they just lost to the Falcons when the Falcons were probably one of the hottest teams the last 4 weeks. That has to matter. I think losing to the Raiders and stop saying week 1 has to matter. You can't tell me that, well, that was just week 1. We lost to the worst team, probably one of the worst teams ever, because they hardly had anybody on their IR and they still were just that bad. And you're going to use that. But then like the whole, well, Matthew Stafford lost to the Falcons in a must-win game. That wasn't a must-win game. That's why I wasn't worried, D-Mac. You know that. I said they still can get the 5 seed and basically nullify that game. And guess what? They did. They nullified it. The only thing that hurt the Rams about that game, the only thing is the draft standing. That's it. It's the only thing that hurt them. So, yeah, it's just a lot of, moving goalposts. It's, it's kind of like the same when the Rams lost to Seattle, and now all of a sudden everybody on the Seahawks side is a rules expert overnight. You know how that works?
Yeah.
Like, it's just, yeah, it's regurgitated narratives. I tend to try, like, not purposely, but I tend to try to be a leader where I want to, I want to run my own narratives. I want to have my own, data. I'll always give credit where credit's due when I get that data, but I want to have my own data, and I do a lot of different projects and whatnot. I'm not just trying to regurgitate and repost the same article that everyone else is. And so that's my biggest thing. Matthew Stafford's played against 5 DVOA top 10 defenses. Drake Maye has played against one of them. And it's funny because, they're going to, and I'll end it with this. They're going to use the wins argument. They're going to use the division argument. And then they're going to tell you not to use the strength of schedule against him. And then they're going to tell you that the strength of schedule doesn't tell the full story about the defenses he's going up against, which I already proved that to be false. But let's just say they're right? Okay. It doesn't tell the full story. Well, the strength of schedule definitely had something to do with why the Rams, historic team right here, we're talking about. I mean, crazy scoring offense. We're talking about a team that has an MVP. We're talking about the best offensive player in football. We're talking about a ton. I mean, the red zone efficiency when Adams was playing. That team lost 5 games. And all 5 of them were down to the wire. And you want to tell me now that we can't use strength of schedule because they finished 5th. Oh, win your division. Okay, well, the division winner had 14 wins and didn't have a 500 schedule. The Rams had a 526 strength of schedule. And the Patriots, for most of the season, had one of the easiest schedules in NFL history. Don't you think maybe that's what contributed to the Patriots getting the 2 seed, winning their division? They got to play the Jets, who were historically bad, a team that didn't even have an interception. Their leading receiver was Garrett Wilson, I think he played in week 5. I think that's the last time he played, Doug. I think it was week 5. Like, that's what we're talking about.
Yeah, and look, I mean, I see an Aaron Judge jersey behind you. The way that we can fix all this, AFC MVP, NFC MVP. Of course, I'm only joking. I like the one MVP. I think baseball needs just one MVP, so I'll leave that at that. But to your point, I mean, I always think about it this way. Like, I try to be as objective as I possibly can. Sometimes, like, the fanboy comes out in me in some of my takes because those are the teams that I grew up rooting for, the guys that I love, the guys that, like, make me happy when they have success, right? How do you make the case for Drake Maye? As you point out, I mean, EPA per play, QBR, CPOE, I mean, just passer rating, success rate. You can look at that, but everyone knows success rate and metrics and rate stats do not tell the whole story for Matthew Stafford. And I think that for me, I try to be as forward as I can. There's new data, if there's new analytics, I like to embrace it, see what it tells me. But sometimes I like to go old school. And if you want to tell me that you're willing to give Matthew Stafford the MVP because it's a career achievement award rolled into that, I'm for that. Like, I really am. Like, I just truly am, just because I think he still deserves it, no doubt about it, based on his season. But the name Matthew Stafford deserves an MVP on his resume. And as you point out, you put Drake Maye in the NFC West, and you mean to tell me he's going to put up those same exact stats, put up those same numbers? I just don't believe that to be the case. And I look at it this way. The eye test wise, his performance against the Seahawks, if they win that game, there's no conversation to be had. Throwing for almost 500 yards, 3 touchdowns, no interceptions. Drake Maye's not having that game. I think it's funny that Matthew Stafford has exactly 1 rushing yard this year compared to like almost 500 for Drake Maye. But I think there's an eye test, there's a narrative. And last thing is, look, I hear fans like, who cares about the MVP and this and that? Look, he's only the 9th quarterback ever to have 45 or more touchdowns. And the only quarterback to lose the MVP with those kind of numbers was Drew Brees in 2011, and he lost to Aaron Rodgers 46-45. So they were extremely close. And I think that there's going to be the journalists out there, the voters out there that are going to kind of look at older traditional stats, and they're not going to hold they did not win their division, they didn't finish with the 1 seed against them, because I think that's kind of what works for them.
Yeah, I mean, one thing that I find really irritating is trying to make this about Cal Raleigh and Aaron Judge. Like, I've seen that argument where it's like, oh, well, Cal Raleigh, he won the stats award, and Aaron Judge, who was the rightful MVP, won because he had all the metrics. I think you're doing that wrong, because also Aaron Judge had the stats, the whole batting average having almost 100 points higher and hitting almost as many home runs is kind of wild. But no, with Stafford, I mean, think about this, right? They will use the argument. And by the way, I know I sound anti-Drake Maye. I like Drake Maye. I was probably higher on Drake Maye and the New England Patriots than 90% of their fan base. I had them winning 11 games. I had them making the playoffs. I was very high on their hiring of going out and getting Vrabel. I think the Titans screwed themselves for the next 5 years, maybe even 10 years. The only good thing they have is Cam Ward right now. So yeah, I was very high on New England. It's not, but like, just because they weren't, like, no one thought Drake Maye was capable of this. I got to be honest with you. And I mean, I really got to be honest with you here. Drake Maye had a really good season, but I think the metrics are they're overrating his season. I think now that we've taken because think about how many of these seasons in the past could have happened, and we didn't have the metrics then. So we just looked at 31 touchdowns, 8 interceptions, nearly 4,400 yards. And we're like, that's a really good year. But we didn't think it was. How on earth are you looking at that? The point being is, if the metrics are close, which they are, and Stafford has 15 passing touchdowns on Drake Maye and has the same amount of interceptions, and your argument is he throws more than Drake Maye. Okay, yes, he threw 105 more passes than Drake Maye. Then why did he not have more interceptions than Drake Maye? See, that's what, like, it's the same reason why I was so enthralled about Patrick Mahomes at Texas Tech. It's like, he threw 600 times. He threw in an air raid offense, and he barely threw interceptions. So it's like, you want to hold it against him that he's throwing an air raid offense and padding his stats. But what you're not going to do is give him credit for the fact he's not throwing picks. That has to matter. So I know it's a different thing, but I do bring that up. And I know Drake Maye has a higher passer rating at 113.5 to Stafford's 109.2. But I mean, I really do believe Stafford had the better year. I don't really think it's that close, D-Mac. Like, I know Drake Maye deserves a lot of credit, and he's number 2 for me, but like 31-8 to 46-8, we can't just say, well, we're not, doing that in 2025. Touchdowns are irrelevant. I've seen that argument. How are touchdowns irrelevant? And also, the thing that I find funny is we get so caught up on the goal line passing when Matthew Stafford has 3 more passes at the goal line, okay? Or 3 more inside the 5. And he has 7 more touchdowns than Drake Maye. Maybe he's just better at it. That doesn't mean that shouldn't be a knock on him. That shouldn't be like, oh, he's padding his stats. Ask Russell Wilson if it's easy to throw at the goal line. Okay? Like, that's the thing. It's like, I'm so tired of hearing that. I think it's harder because the defense has essentially another defender. That's the sideline on the left side of the end zone, the sideline on the right side of the end zone, and the sideline in the back of the end zone. Okay? Like, they have 3 defenders essentially. It is a much tighter area. It's harder to make decisions. I don't think Stafford should be getting destroyed because he has touchdowns and he has success in the red zone. D-Mac, they're not running the ball nearly as well in the red zone like they used to. So they kind of haven't had a choice. I don't believe in stat padding because if that was the case, then I think Stafford would have got to 50 touchdowns. Like, you know what I mean? Like, why would Sean McVay stop there? Why would he have stopped at 46? What about the times Blake Corum ran in? Why don't you just throw it to Devontae Adams? He's like automatic at that point in the season. There's so many different, things there. But what I've learned is that Matthew Stafford throwing 5 touchdowns against the Jacksonville Jaguars team that is the 3rd seed in the AFC has just been erased from memory. And right after Drake Maye threw 5 touchdowns to against the Jets, one of the worst teams I've ever seen, that is the one that we're supposed to be like, that's the MVP. And then when Stafford throws 4 touchdowns against the Cardinals this past week, now he's padding stats. It's always going to be like moving the chains and what it is. But I think the cream is going to rise to the top. And I will not be surprised if the Patriots aren't in the AFC Championship game. And I won't be surprised when the Rams and mainly Matthew Stafford are hoisting that Lombardi trophy.
I agree with everything you said. And what pisses me off, I've heard people like Bill Simmons, right? There's like, you can't give the MVP to a 5 seed. You can't do it to a 5 seed. We've seen in the past guys like Adrian Peterson, right? You can still win the MVP and not be at the top of your conference. But why is it Matthew Stafford's fault? Why should he be penalized because there's a team with a better record it happens to play in the same division as him? If Seattle played in a different division, the Rams, they would be a 2 seed, right? They'd be like the Patriots essentially. And I just hate these people out there. Oh, it's an old man. Give the old man his award. That's not what it is either. I think everything needs to be considered. But the truth of the matter is it's like you look at Steve Nash kind of winning some MVPs over Kobe Bryant, right? You kind of look back and you look at Shaq having 1 MVP and you're like, man, this guy's only had 1 MVP. I don't want to look at Stafford like he had 1 All-Pro, 3 Pro Bowls, no MVPs, when I don't think that tells the full story about how good of a player that he was. So that's why this one kind of means a lot to me, because I think it really just ties a bow and cements his legacy. And that, look, of course, I totally agree. And that's that anyone that doesn't agree with that doesn't know ball. Precision passing happens inside the 5 a lot of times. And a lot of these batted balls, tip balls, things getting picked off, like just quick slants. I mean, there's so many examples. But yeah, did Devontae Adams help that? But guess what? Give Les Snead and Sean McVay and the Rams organization credit for bringing in a guy that would work with Matthew Stafford. And I think that bringing in a veteran like Devontae Adams is someone that Matthew Stafford day one is going to have respect for. So of course he's going to get him the football, and that shouldn't work against him. It makes no sense whatsoever. I mean, it's like saying, oh, Shohei Ohtani won just because Yamamoto had a great start, things like that. No, great teams have multiple great players on it. And yeah, give credit to Drake Maye, but he's got NFL guys around him too, and he played weaker competition. I think Stafford's going to win that award. If he doesn't, I'm going to be extremely upset. I know you'll be extremely upset, but I'm going to send this video to all the voters, and I'll clip out all your stuff, and we'll make sure that award is won. Now, back to the 2025 Rams, though. Back to the